Well, howdy and welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Mom.
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yep, thank you for joining with us again.
We always love doing this, and Mom, how is your week going thus far?
Brandon, my week is going fine. The day you see this is on a Wednesday, month and a half or so, talking about facts of life, and we are doing so again.
Yes, and which episode are we speaking about, Mom?
Today we're going to talk about me and Eleanor.
Yes, Mom, and this episode released the 2nd of January, 1985.
Yes, and as we've kind of talked about previously with the Facts of Life, we were taking a deep dive into looking at pivotal episodes of the show. And so in this particular episode, we are kind of discussing it because Andy is introduced, and we think Andy is a pivotal and important character in the Facts of Life.
Yes, he definitely is, and so this is the first episode in which he appears. And Mom, are you able to do us the honors of telling us a bit about the episode?
I sure will, Brandon. And this particular episode, Mrs. Garrett has just received information that she is now going to be contracted to provide food for another organization. And so she realizes she needs some help. Actually, the girls actually realize she needs some help. And so she writes a man wanted sign for the door. And so actually, Natalie does. And so, anyway, Andy walks right in and he says that he is this person and that he could provide the additional help that Mrs. Garrett needs. And so Andy begins. He does everything he can to help them out. He tries to show that he is indispensable. And at the end, we find that Andy has provided Mrs. Garrett with another sale or another mini contract for her catering service. And so Mrs. Garrett then at the end does take the sign and she does tear it up. So introduces Andy. Now, I know I've spoken a lot about Andy. There is another subplot that kind of goes on at the same time, and that is that Natalie and Tootie are both involved with the play, and actually Tootie actually writes and acts in a one woman play. Unfortunately, the play does not go well, and so that's what the second subplot is in this particular episode.
Well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brandon.
And overall, what did you think about this episode?
I thought it was cute. I really liked the episode, Brandon. I thought they did a wonderful job of introducing Andy. He is not the main focus per se, even though he was introduced. The main focus really is on Natalie and Tootie. But by introducing Andy as not necessarily the main focus, I think he is brought in very subtly and very nicely as a big contrast with the way that Kelly was brought in on her first episode.
Yes, and I definitely want to speak about those comparisons a little bit later, but overall, how do you think that Andy's introduction works with this episode? Because Andy per se isn't the focus of this episode, whereas Kelly's focused on the episode we just spoke about last week. But how would you say that his introduction really worked within this episode before I give my thoughts?
I thought it worked really well because he was not the main focus. He was able to just kind of come in and not overtake everything. And I think that's what's important here is that he is just going to be shown as a character, or at least initially, as a character who is just another person who was there and to add a different dynamic to the show. He's not the same age as the girls. And so you don't have to worry about him talking about, being involved with what the girls are involved with. He really has a different point of view and a different age bracket altogether than a different. So they just did a really nice job of introducing him.
Yes, and overall, while the main plot, of course, is the play and whether or not Tootie's role within it will be any good, which, spoiler alert, it is not. Um, I like that the dynamic of that with the sort of bickering, if you will, of Tootie and Natalie and trying to figure that out. I like that that's actually able to play into sort of Andy's introduction in the sense that they yeah, of course, they're trying to figure out this play and figure out, okay, what's the best way to make it work. Joe and Blair, and to extent Mrs. Garrett, are also working on trying to prep Edna's edibles to accommodate this. But by bringing in Andy, he's able to be a part of both plots in the sense of that they originally brought him in for the sake of helping out the store, and then now all of a sudden he is helping with the set, and he's able to, I feel, earn his way onto the show. He's only a guest star in this, whereas Kelly started off last season being a main character, and he's only a guest here. But I mean, I feel that he is actually an integral part of this episode, even if he's not featured that much per se.
Yeah, I think he is too. And like I said, I just think they did a great job of introducing him.
And of course, as I said before, while I know Andy is one of the many subplots of the episode, I feel that this episode is actually designed in part to properly introduce him into the fold. And I say that specifically because the episode sort of begins and ends with, starts off with the reason as to why Andy was brought in to help out with all the extra work that needs to be done, especially with Natalie being unavailable. And then it ends with Andy overall being not promoted, if you will, but needed, or not losing his job, I guess, by the end of that episode.
Yes, because when he first came in, they said it was supposed to be just a temporary assignment. And so they kind of showed that he was needed as a person and needed for the show.
Yes, not even to mention that he gave Mrs. Garrett a little commission in the sense of he was able to get her some new catering opportunities that she otherwise wouldn't have been able to get.
Yep, yep, he was very integral in that.
And going back to sort of our analysis and the compare contrast, so how do you feel that they treated the welcoming of Andy as opposed to that episode we had focusing on Kelly? Even though that wasn't her first one, that was the one I feel of the series that really focused in on her.
Well, I think they learned. Um, they learned that I I guess with Kelly, they were trying to probably get a different dynamic or bring her in as another person to join in with the girls or to show that, try to be kind of like Joe and give the trouble that Joe used to have when she was younger and to bring that element back to the show. It just didn't work. I think she was just a little harsh when she came in, and it was too much at one time. They tried by having her go in, episode here and there, but you really didn't know her point, and then all of a sudden her point was there real quick. And with Andy coming in like this, it was kind of like they said, let's just go ahead and weave him in. Let's weave him in. Let's let him be with the girls. Let's have him be friendly, unlike Kelly. Let's have him be likable, unlike Kelly. Let's let him be younger. So he's really not trying. They're not trying to compare him with the girls. He is just an addition to the show.
Yes, I fully agree with that. And I feel one of the big takeaways of this episode too is that now that the business is maturing, thinking about Edna's edibles, that they need someone to, in a sense, help out with that because it seems somewhat unreasonable if the business is growing that it's just going to be the four girls and Mrs. Garrett, and especially as we're now seeing the girls do other things. For instance, this episode again is focused in on on 2D's acting and Natalie's writing, and so we're able to see that they're getting into different storylines. And so, for all intents and purposes, similar to Eastland, you have to have some students in there. You need to have some customers, somebody in the store to justify still being the main setting of the show.
Yep, you sure do. You sure do. And it's kind of like everything you said, Brandon, that it was just a way to bring in that extra element.
Definitely. And so, is there anything else that you want to specifically speak about for this episode?
No, I like to rate the shows 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. I gave this one a 3. It's just a very nicely done episode, and just kind of very standard for Facts of Life.
I agree with that. I feel that this episode has done a good job of showing the dynamic between Natalie and Tootie, but then also in a sense, even with Joe and Blair, in the sense of Blair's whole way of sort of getting the business more money is by only charging for champagne and napkins.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very true. Very, very true. So let us know what your thoughts are about this particular episode. Did you like the way Andy was brought in for to the show?
Yes, definitely let us know. And Mom, we do have a connection.
Oh, what's our connection, Brandon?
So our connection is with the director.
All right, go ahead.
So we mentioned in our last two discussions that we have a lot of commonalities when it comes to the directors of these episodes, because many of the directors and even the writers as well are definitely staples within the show. And so we've spoken about for the first five seasons, Assad Kawada was one of the primary directors. And so he's not really here for season six going forward for the intents and purposes of our discussions. But let's enter in new director, John Boweb.
All righty, and where do we know him from?
So, so for John Boeb, he directed one episode of The Facts of Life we previously spoke about, which is Christmas in the Big House.
Okay.
As a fun fact, that episode was actually the episode right before this one.
Oh, that makes sense. All right.
And and yes, but in addition to that, he also directed the first episode. Well, an episode that we've spoken about for two other shows.
Oh, what is that?
So he directed the first episode of The Parenthood,
Okay.
alongside the season two premiere of Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
So yes, but he directed overall more than any other director on The Facts of Life, 91 episodes.
That is incredible. Really, really incredible.
And yes, and like I said before, our previous director that we've spoken about, Assad Kawad, he had done 77. So between the two of them, they had done almost the whole series.
Wow, that is really great. Really, really great. All right, Brandon, I enjoyed speaking with you this week about the facts of life.
As do I, Mom.
All right, we thank everybody for watching.
And we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right, have a great day, everybody.